Yes, today is Monday. It's the beginning of the week over here. And I kept still preoccupied about the matrices of the topic of aggression. Is it seeps into everything that you cannot imagine in your life and in your day. And if you uh, sit still for 2 minutes and recap on one of the events that happened like 10 minutes before, or the night before, or whatever is the time span that you can't your memory will strike. Once you mention the word aggression, say how your brain will collaborate with you of restoring all these patterns. And you're going to realize that your storage of whatever is activating within unconsciously and running the show of the reactive response to events, to your day, to the perception, to the memory, to the anticipation, for your connection, for your relationships. You understand how the wiring of your brain will strike at this moment. Try to give yourself, and you are going to identify how trauma is stored in the body, how it can reflect and project even in recalling moments in your life. So that we are not taking, I'm not taking it haphazardly or something that it is normal or cultural norm or social norm, that intergenerational trauma that has passed a lot of unwanted wound. We call it the core wounds. So this is from the family of origin and the childhood. The core hopes and the other things like that, the things that you wish could happen or had happened. And this because of the I stated before, the default mood network interaction with reticle formation in rumination, and then leading to anxiety, depression, and other, if we allow it. If you're not realizing it, because your body keeps the score. Your body is highly intelligent, that is encoding every single minute or second or trillisecond of your life. So you are equipped with a highly sensitive intelligence systems. I don't call it like the mind, body, spirit. I call it the high sensitive intelligence systems. Because if you see how God created the whole universe around you, you are gonna see the synchronicity and synchronicity. Oscillations, the rhythm, as the way we follow the rhythm. Is it out of, is it arrhythmic? So yeah, it is all in God's creation and what has installed in within you, and it is taken for granted and never been. We as human beings, if you are not in a cluster A, if you're not in a cluster A or some deviation in cluster B, you are gonna have this inquisitive journey. Why this happened, why and how. And once you get into the why and how, your inquisitive journey will come to when, who, where, and here you understand the cluster and the pattern of the behavior and whether it is positive or negative. Whoever have a regulated central nervous system, they have a well established healthy life. If it didn't happen the time they were born, it happened across across their developmental stages. So it brings this moral compass, this sense of self awareness and know thyself, and the will alignment with the mind and the body and the self-regulation. So this is, you can notice it in over time. People are masking, so the first like week or day or month of behavior, that is not, but over the years is, you are going to see the pattern, you are going to understand exactly what are you in front of, and it is your decision to set your boundaries, limitations, what is your priorities, what do you stand for, and how you are gonna interact or react or act on whatever is presented, because every behavior is presenting you with a lot of data. And if you are operating from hyper vigilant impulsive, you don't know yourself, you don't know even anything around you. You are acting from the reptilian brain that is jumping into fight for light. So it is not a healthy state because you don't see the other, or you don't see even yourself. So you are completely a wild animal in the jungle. I call it a wild animal in the jungle. It can lead to a loss of relationships, loss of everything that can make meaning and relate to the sense of healthy connection. And it can relate to repeating the same reptilian behavior over and over till the body understands this is the norm, I'm going to act from this. So this is, you are dealing with, you are chasing the tiger. So see the strength of the tiger and your strength. So how far you would like to run, that is up to you. So it is not my decision, but my decision is to bring awareness how humans within the embedded intergenerational trauma shaped a part of the the perceived reality, the perceived stress, and the perceived threat, and perceived pain. Whatever is harming, it is a voicing of pain, unprocessed pain, unresolved pain, whether it is emotional, psychological, mental, social, name it. It is somehow broke the integrity of a clarity and alignment with the self, and cause some of the separations, we call it the dissonance, or called of the fragmented, the distorted reality. So it is not something that you can, oh, this is a distorted reality, oh, this is a cognitive dissonance, oh, this is a dissociation, or it is a sublimation, or whatever it is. But you have to understand these patterns, it comes with clusters. They don't come single or solo or monolithic, what we call it monolithic, or singing a singularity in the behavior. So they like 1 + 1 2 with the behavior. No, 1 + 1, it can equal trillion, it can equal like a billion, zillion of indicators or parameters that can lead us what happened internally and what is projecting externally. So it is not an easy thing. So if you are planning a life, so you have to understand what systems are you operating from, how far your nervous system is regulated, what is your understanding about relationships, and what are their function. What are their function in your life? Is it a perpetuatory or aggressive driven, that's seeking this thrill, this excitement of causing harm. So therefore, you are in a constant state of looking for a target to lash at, or bring or project some of the infusion that will drive your excitement, your joy, but it is a joy through pain of others. Some is the relationships that it is like fear driven, because another thing is that the perpetrator is working on fear of abandonment. I am gonna leave you, you cannot live without me, you are gonna be nothing without me, you are. So this, that elimination of the existence of the individual, they feel helpless, so they have to align with what the aggressor is, even it's abusive, even it is even it is like very hard, and it is dehumanizing of the human nature. Is it like I say resources based, like we call it friends with benefits. So friends with benefits, it is like the coexistence. You have this and I have this, so you will benefit from this and I will benefit from, let us exchange. But it doesn't have a real connection. It doesn't have a real core of what we call it intimacy, or a real core of respect and dignity to the human subject. It is looking for the object, not the human, looking for the object of the, or the not the human. So we have the friends of benefits, so we see it in a lot. And whenever is another friend show with more benefits, they move and they shift the blame, and they put the blame all over on the person that already, okay, it's done because so and so and so and so. So is it friends with benefits? So that means if I don't get this, I am gonna look for another source that will provide it for me. So this is all return into the shaky ground of our understanding from socioculture, socioeconomical, geopolitical, name it, from early shaping of the behavior. What is being a part of a group or being a part of a relationship. So it's a fragmented, distorted, it is not healthy at all. So whatever is shaking, whatever is shaky, dysfunctional, is gonna like continue on. You cannot build your house on a shaky ground. Shaky ground means that there is always like this threat, this is fear, it's gonna collapse. So that is why the perpetrator mostly look for is the collapse state. They love to see the collapse state of their victim, of their target. So the collapse state leading to helplessness, hopelessness, depression, anxiety, self-harm, suicide, as we see heavily in GI disorders, and then the manifestation of metabolic syndrome. Your body is bringing all whatever interacting with each other into your genetic predisposition, into your changing electrobiochemistry, and it changing you over time. And majority, what we say, few females found the respect, found the love, found the dignity, the integrity in their life. There are few, majority not. And this is, I have been, I am in my early 60s. So I am like in my 60 decade right now. So that is part of my life. So when you reach this age, so you are not anymore anymore taken like um, like the ignorant state, or the manipulation of your existence, or the manipulation of your dignity and integrity as a human. So you are heading to 60 years old, that what happened all this. So what happened on all of this? It's a whole enriched with all the good and the bad and ugly. You have formed a specific perspective. You have realized that self-awareness starts with healthy life. So and regulating of the central nervous system, because if you are self-aware, so that allow you the selection, the understanding of what is yes and what is no, and you know your why and how. But unfortunately, majority started this journey late in their life, when I don't know what is the common saying in that. My apology. I am I'm trying to find it. Yes. Yes, yes, I got it. Yeah, I will. I will send it, because yeah, I tried to understand its meaning. So I'm gonna send it in the chat when the shit hit the fan. So so I am old enough. Okay, pardon me. So listen here. Yes, I send that. I will send it. So let's see. Is done accept that? Isn't here? Let's see. And trying. Yeah, so I am trying to. They don't accept it anyway right now. Anyway, I will try. Yes, the phrase when the shit hit the fan. So the crisis. So living from a state of crisis. In majority, when they are in their survival mode, their body gradually, the sympathetic response lead to a crisis state. So their neurobiology is not from only survival, it is activating from crisis state. So here we have to understand it is the elevation of the accumulated unwanted experiences on the body, or the mind, the brain and the body, the brain, mind and body, over time in interaction with the environment within the context of the interpersonal relationships, culture norms, social norms, geopolitical, all of this. So we hear the word crisis a lot of time. And if you, another thing as well, really good source, uh, a good source, I hope because I don't have the full name. I don't have, and let's see. There is a lot of resources exist on crisis management, crisis intervention. One more time. Yes, I stated that. I cited the trauma research foundation and the National Child Traumatic Stress Network. Another thing we have to do, I don't have the name right now, but hopefully I get it, as it is truly important to understand that there is a lot of work, but mostly they work with the combat and military. It's high conflict zones, war zones, and things like that. But now modern life, it shows that prolonged exposure to the survival mode mechanisms, and that is the survival mode, that is fight, flight, freeze. It presents the same tapestry in the neurobiology of war zone areas outcomes. So you are in a war zone, but it is in a different context. It is, as I stated, the sociocultural, geopolitical, because even you are not in a war zone, we are in a complex, diverse environment. So everybody is carrying the load of like previous generations or people you didn't even know. But whoever is presenting this identity, this person will be judged with the whole like the lineage they are coming from. So it is now people are afraid. This is like all the times in we see it in very very dark areas of the Roman Empire, the Byzantines, the Greek Empire, the Ottoman, the Mamluk, it's all this. We see it in the very old World War One, two, and now we are globally undeclared state of war, but in a different realm. So people now afraid to. Many now afraid to know, to say, this is me, this is where I came from, because everyone is looking at where you come from. So all this projection comes, all this projection, and understanding your social status, your marital status, your all of that. It is only an an opening or an invitation for explosion of this intergenerational trauma. That's why I'm saying, if you look at the toxic emotional load, the unhealthy personal interpersonal relationships, and the trauma bleeding, it's all bring us into the complex environment of the behavior. It is not only indicating the moment, it is the load you carry, that detriment, whatever. And here, activating from the survival mode, I said, with the elevation of chronic stress, chronic inflammation, the person comes into the crisis state. So it's a pathology, but it's a physiology as well. So we have to understand everything is driving, what drives this projection of diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular, cancer. There are neurological disorders now. It's became scary that highly sensitive individuals, when they are exposed to a humongous, your body is fighting all the time, but it comes to a point that say, I can't anymore, I'm sorry. And this is when the genetic predisposition and the weakening of the manufacturing or the makeup of the DNA methylation and myelination and all of that, because all of this oxidative stress, chronic inflammation, all these, your wires are being eaten. So don't underestimate all this type of all types of aggression on your lifespan, health span, quality of life, and the integrity of the human subject. Never underestimate this. There are critical points in my life over and over. It became now priceless. If I cannot stand for myself, if I cannot stand and explain what is happening internally due to the complex environment with whatever accumulated through ages, you are you are you are betraying yourself. You are giving up on the life that God has given freely to you. You don't have any right to ask for anything when you shut down and you started to go into the dorsal state of hopelessness, and the body shuts down. And the body is very intelligent that it takes a specific amount of that. Either the person is not aware because of the culture, the environment. That's why we understand now culture intelligence and the rule of promoting culture health is worth trillions of dollars in promoting healthy people, healthy communities, healthy families, and a good life with respect. So this is not something that it comes today or yesterday. This is a journey. I said I am in my sixth decade. So I have experienced enough that stand for something or you are going to fall for anything. Stand for something or you will fall for anything. I don't know where this came from, but however, it came one year in my journey. I found myself repeating this. So, okay, so it attributed to Alexander Hamilton. So that is when, yes, this who stand for nothing will fall for anything, Alexander Hamilton. That is good to know here. Another thing is show more. Okay. So Alexander Hamilton, Middleton, Middleton said, if you don't stand for something, you will fall for anything. It says just of the pieces that you see that sometimes I stay moments, teachable moments in your life that things where they came from, and you start to say, why I am saying this right now. And it all comes to this realization or lesson learned, and you come to a stage that, okay, I started to understand this is 15 years of the journey of be my understand what is happening to be my own teacher and teach me the lessons that I haven't taught in from early age. So that is the surrendering to learning and understanding with respect to that we have to shift how we understand or truly understand ourselves first before we connect or relate to anyone, and don't expect that everyone will align or agree or cheer for you. Or cheer for you. Be your own cheerleader, because it's tough. Yeah. So you have to compete with yourself. You're not competing with anyone. So this is the perspective that I am continuing the journey in making this metrics about aggression and understand its play and its complexity when the tapestry of your day, of your week, of your life, whether you are 5 years old, 11, 16, 19, 26 or 30 or 40 or 50. But once this behavior comes with the 30, understand that it is tough. It is tough because it's embedded in it is embedded in the neurobiology within the cell membrane, and other mechanisms took place already. So that is why the person is acting from a compromised neurobiology. It is not a full healthy lens neurobiology, and that is what is present. What is the load? The excitotoxicity load, especially cortisol and glutamate, histamine, norepinephrine. That is the toxic load part of, and the allostatic load. This is the compromise of your homeostasis or the balance of the cellular mechanisms within your body and brain and the mind. And the body keeps the score. The body keeps the score. So let us go dive in this. That is part 10. So hooray, hooray. So this is part 10. I am praying, and hopefully it will. We have gears. We work within the mechanical engineering model. These gears with all its shape and size, and each one, even the tiny gear, is applying force and has a function. It is not only from the largest, medium, small, and X small, whatever, the force or the design or the mechanical design that the object is being functioning. So it requires specific capacity, different mass and density and intensity and flow of these gears together, no matter their size or shape. So see, they are all that. Like, this reminds me of the neuron and neuron receptors, or the neurotransmitters and neurotransmitter receptors. So the key and the lock, the key and the lock. So nobody's questioning why I am there or what. No, they are functioning and there is cohesion and harmony. However, there are other factors. This is the time, the usage, the optimal quality of the product, and this goes through another testing. And we see how the industrial or the manufacturing sector is being or hiring highly skilled individuals to present this product into the market, and they know any small tiny flow that is a high cost value, and that will can interrupt or disrupt the flow of operations or revenues or all things of that. So why we are not taking this perspective into human design, into human design, into human understanding of self-aware, of understanding you are a cellular in action. So everything is interacting or has impact, or you have impact on, is it changing you on the molecular level. Why we are not being aware for that from early age? That is why I'm asking before 1, 2, 3 and ABC, understand understand the regulation of the central nervous system, understand of the cytotoxicity load, understand of your inflammation profile, understand of the your allostatic load, understand that what type, how healthy patterns of behavior and life can look like, or being shaped from adult modeling, from family first, environment, whatever community or any, from the human ecological model. It is all, so you are the common denominator, but however all systems are influencing, and you are influencing the systems as well. So it is a bi-directional. You are not a passive recipient. You are not passive. Some way or how you interact with it. So know your responsibility and understand why behavior impact the outcomes of your life. Many things we don't have a control over. However, what we would like to know, how you perceive everything. That is so important. And the earlier the self-aware started, the much better is gonna be over time. So let us try. Hopefully something in this, I didn't know. Hopefully everyone is good. So when I hear this, I say prayers. Yeah. Life is worth it. Okay, so I'm going to bring a different from what part 8 to part 10. This is all a matrix, and from this matrix we are supposed to understand every individual share some of these clusters, and that what is it will provide me with how and why and how, and then I dissect within when, who, where, and what. Diagnosis is, it should be like the last, not the first, but we have to dive deep into. That's why we go back the downstream approach of behavior dissection. I say that it's a dissecting. So I'm bringing today is aggression and sympathetic medullary axis, HPA axis again, hypothalamic pituitary adrenaline axis, central nervous system, with some behaviors so many are touched with, like bullying, scapegoating, gaslighting, mobbing. And in correlation with cluster personality A, B, and C, psychological defense mechanisms. So what are they? The role of culture intelligence, the biopsychosocial model, and the attribution theory framework. This is part of understanding why and how, positioning from the aggressor and the target, intervention and takeaway of tools, and self-aware. So how can we do that? Today we are gonna explore. So it's an exploration, deep dive into the behavior of aggression, which makes the tapestry of everything you may encounter in your life, whether early childhood, adolescence, and early adulthood, adulthood or older adults, and elderly. And we see it's really apparent in elderly population, because it's now we understand whether they were personality A, B, or C. It became so clear in front of us. So the sympathetic medullary axis, also known as the sympathoadrenaline medullary, SAM axis plays a central role in the body's acute stress response. It is a major neuroendocrine pathway that mobilizes physiological resources to respond to perceived threats. We see perceived reality, perceived stress, perceived threats, perceived pain. So it's all conceptual from early age and inheritance from multiple generation, if they say from 4th generation or 14th generation, the survival brain. So SAM is an axis, SAM axis is the first stage of the stress response system, rapidly activating within seconds of a perceived threat. It connects the central nervous system, especially the hypothalamus, with the sympathetic nervous system, CNS, and the adrenal medulla. The hypothalamus detects a stressor and sends signals via the spinal cord. And right now, they are looking at some of the healthcare. They are remodifying their systems. They are going to integrate lumbar puncture to understand the early detection of genetic predisposition and the biomarkers of the disease. And that is an advancement to understand that your core started to be in the front line of intervention. So via the spinal cord to the adrenal medulla, part of the adrenal glands above kidneys. In response, the adrenal medulla releases catecholamines or mainly adrenaline or epinephrine or neuroadrenaline or neuroepinephrine. And we call EpiPen, that is in, so just to activate. This is a mimicking and stimulation. These hormones prepare the body for immediate action, increase the heart rate and the blood pressure, dilation of bronchioles for better oxygen intake. Mobilization of glucose and fatty acids for energy, redirection of blood flow from the digestive system to the muscles and the brain. This response is often referred to the fight or flight response, a term first coined by Cannon, who said the physiological response. I have it in my physiology class. Cannon, and we're going back to this theory in 1932, looking at the behavior from a physiological response and not only a psychological response. We are yeah, that's part of my physiology class. So who also described the role of adrenal medulla in the physiological reactions to threats. In connection to aggression and maladaptive social behaviors, when SAM axis is chronically activated or dysregulated, it may contribute to maladaptive emotional response, especially aggression, and behaviors associated with manipulation, dominance, such as scapegoating, gaslighting, bullying. So when we relate this to SAM axis, this is the first response of your body, the first defense mechanism in your body on the physiological and pathophysiology, represented in aggression. That is what the psychology is translating it in scapegoating, gaslighting, bullying. So prolonged stress can sensitize the SAM axis, leading to hyperreactivity. This hyperarousal has been linked to impulsive aggression and emotional dysregulation. In environments where threat is perceived frequently, like abusive households, toxic workplace, so individuals may remain in a constant state of hypervigilance, contributing to defensive aggression. when people lash at each other. Why they lash? It's a prolonged response or exposure to perceived threats. There is a common saying as well. There is many common saying today. I am gonna look for it. Listen here. From bit to a threat. Oh, yes. So here, this is in Forbes. This is a phenomena Forbes became interested in, from bit to a threat. See here, you were so close and like each other, and then at a sudden, action. So what happened? So that is the perceived threat. So another thing that was in Forbes article from bit. So understand that when you have a rivalry, so you wonder what's going on. She was nice, she was okay, what's going on? So that is a perceived threat, and unfortunately it happened without understanding the nature, but the target presented some perceptual experiences that it can be a threat. So for a threat, for example, for position, for public picture, for dominance, power, authority, or anything like that. So unfortunately, it occurs, but it impacts the sympathetic response over time. So we are taking lots of saying people. This is based experiences on in people already experience it. So whenever you relate, you may relate. So individuals may remain in constant state of hypervigilance, contributing to defensive aggression. And defensive aggression, so when we see from bet to a threat, that is the common saying. So for scapegoating and gaslighting, bullying and mobbing, these are group dynamics or interpersonal strategies often employed to maintain control or reduce personal anxiety in social hierarchies. Victims of these behaviors often show persistent activation of CNS, leading to psychosomatic symptoms and trauma response. Perpetrators may experience stress relief through the externalization of inner conflict, offloading their stress onto others in a cyclical pattern. So that means that the aggressor in this perceived threat increase the anxiety, and mostly in cluster C, group dynamic, in cluster B and C group dynamic, cluster B and C group dynamic. So the aggressor offloading that dumping. So I'm saying in some videos, don't be a dumping bag, and understand your boundaries and limitations. And when it is not respected, it is time to move on. So, for example, I found myself like looking at the scapegoating psychology. So whenever you are perceived as a liar, unstable, don't try hard, unmotivated, you are the problem, disrespected, no family, no friends, welcome to the dark experience of scapegoating and the black sheep in attitudes and disposition of others toward you. Scapegoating is a psychological and social phenomena where blame for negative events or outcomes is displaced onto an individual or group. often unjustly. This defense mechanism can occur at both the individual and the collective levels, and is often rooted in deeper psychological processes from a psychodynamic that's Freudian, so the id and ego. um, so Freud has deep, everything goes back to the relationship between the family of origin. Perspective scapegoating serves as a defense mechanism, particularly projection, where unacceptable feelings, thoughts, or impulses are attributed to another person or a group. Individuals struggling with internal conflict, so from the perpetrator, it is external, and they have to get this off their chest onto somebody. For the target internally, and that is how the cellular level it's eating them alive. So individuals struggling with internal conflict, anxiety, or guilt may project these negative emotions onto the scapegoating, thereby gaining a sense of relief or moral superiority. This externalization helps maintain a fragile ego structure. So whoever is projecting onto you, whoever is externalizing their perceived threat onto you, this is a defense mechanism to maintain a fragile, it's like a very thinner ego structure. So there's insecurity with that, insecurities, fears, maybe. In groups, group dynamic scapegoating functions as a means of strengthening internal cohesion by uniting members against a common other, for example, called family alliance or family cohesion. It depends. If you hear any word, we are a family, so this is a red flag. So when somebody say we are a family, this is a red flag. This means you can be from pet to a threat, and this is not a good position for any person to be in. According to social identity theory, groups enhance self-esteem by favoring the in-group and derogating the out-group dynamic. When a group experiences collective stress, such as economic downturns or social unrest, scapegoating can be used to redirect frustration and avoid confronting internal problems. Clinically, individuals who consistently engage in scapegoating may exhibit traits like narcissism, that is cluster B. That's the dynamic is between, especially bullying, scapegoating, mobbing. This is cluster B with cluster C. Cluster C, there are the highly sensitive person. Clinically, individuals who consistently engage in scapegoating may exhibit traits of narcissistic, borderline, or paranoid personality disorder, according to the American Psychiatric Association 2022. Scapegoating can also occur in dysfunctional family systems where one child is labeled the problem. They are causing all the problems, and it becomes the repository of the family's anxiety and dumping back, I said it, and the unresolved issues. This pattern can lead to long-term psychological harm for the scapegoated individual, including low self-esteem, anxiety, and depression. So it has its impact. So it's not easy. So you have to navigate self-aware from early age. That is a critical point if we would like healthy people. So what are the psychological mechanisms? So they are unconscious strategies individuals use to protect themselves from anxiety, internal conflicts, and perceived threats. These mechanisms play a critical role not only in individual behavior, but also in group dynamics, where interpersonal tensions, power struggle, and emotional threats often arise. So what are they? We're going to start one by one. Denial. The first one, denial. Refusing to accept reality or facts because they are too threatening. Individual behavior. A person who has an addiction denies they have a problem despite clear evidence. Group dynamic, a team ignores warning signs of dysfunction and continues behaving as if everything is fine. But your body picks the signaling and understand what trajectory is that in place, and it is changing electrobiochemistry. Projection definition, that is mostly like the common or popular defense mechanism, projection. Attributing one's own unacceptable thoughts or feelings to someone or something. Individual behavior, a person who feels hostility as soon as the others are angry at them. Group dynamics, a group blames an outsider or scapegoated member for internal problems they unconsciously share, like insecurity or poor communication. Displacement, redirecting emotions from a threatening target to a safer one. Individual behaviors, after being criticized by a boss, a person yells at their partner. Group dynamics, employees angry at upper management take out their frustration on interns or new hires. So it's like it's for displacement, it is like whoever sees them as like a higher hand, they put their frustration, their anger that they cannot confront the right target or the right source of the behavior. They are afraid to confront, so they dump onto the lower, or the who they are seeing as less or naive or gullible or sassy, name it. There is a sort of vulnerability that the person that became a dumping bag, they demonstrated and is being taken advantage of. And that is mostly in power dynamic. Whatever this conflict occurred, there is power dynamic. There is the internal or the real cause of the behavior is masked, and it is ignored and left under the rug, and or turn the other cheek on it. So it's not fully addressed. Rationalization, justifying behaviors or feelings with seemingly logical reasons to avoid the other explanation. Individual behavior, a student who fails an exam blames the teacher rather than their lack of preparation. Group dynamic, a failing organization blames the market forces instead of addressing poor leadership or strategy. Reaction formation, transforming unacceptable impulses into their opposites. Individual behavior, a person who feels hate acts overly friendly toward the person they dislike. Pretend, the make-believe game, the make-believe that can attribute to many dysfunctional dynamic. Group dynamic, a group that unconsciously fears a minority group may publicly express exaggerated support or allyship while holding implicit biases. And when the decision making comes, when something really very shows that the alliance, the decision will reflect the true intentions. So look at the motives and the intentions. Look at the outcomes. They don't happen. They don't happen in vain. There is a lot of cascade of background to it. The backstage of performance. Regression, reverting to behaviors from an earlier developmental stage. When under stress, individual behavior, and overwhelmed adult throws a tantrum or acts helpless. Group dynamics, teams under pressure may revert to unproductive habits such as blaming others or deferring to authoritarian leadership. Sublimation, channeling unacceptable impulses into socially acceptable activities. Individual behavior, a person with aggressive tendency becomes a surgeon or a boxer. So they are channeling, and this has happened. Many said, I have, because we understand aggression has a genetic predisposition. It has a specific mechanisms or alleles or biomarkers that this person is disposed to aggressive behavior if the environment motivate or encourage it or adopt it. That some are aware and understand their tendency, and when they become of their dark side of personality, that is the shifting of the, because everything can change if it is brought to light early, if it brought awareness to it and understand the pros and cons. So these people, and I said before, one of the dark tetrad, he understood his brain anatomy and the family history of dark side of personality, and he became a doctor. So he channeled, because that needs what? Very tense hours of work, dedication of understanding highly complex. So they put their brain into complex experiences so it can shift electrobiochemistry into manifesting a whole different perspective from dark personality into a productive individual in the community or in the society, with understanding their tendency toward the dark personality. They understand this neuroanatomy and structure of their brain or the family history. So they directed all this heaviness, all this density of unwanted, they can end up in a very dramatic state. So they channeled this, so they became a surgeon or a boxer, all violence. The majority you see in football players, so they have this tendency. So they channel their aggression into aggressive sports or aggressive but in a way that would lead to a positive outcome or a positive picture in the public. So say it, how they function this aggression. Group dynamic, a highly competitive team channels rivalries into outperforming competitors rather than infighting. So they put all these tendency and predisposition in bringing the trophy, on bringing the victory, or owning the championship of the world or something like that. So they put a different perspective into the light. So their dark tendencies is perceived from the public in different way. And that is channeling. Identification, adopting characteristics of someone perceived as powerful or admirable. Individual behavior, a bullied child started acting like their bully to feel more in control. So they mimic their target behavior, like a mockery. Group dynamic: a group adopts the language or values of a dominant figure or a rival group to gain a sense of power or identity. It means that they are acting like the person, that opponent. So they see how they wear, places they go, their consumption, their marketing. They are mimicking everything to gain this sense of power, but it is fake, it is masked, it is not real, it's not genuine. Introjection: internalizing the beliefs or values of others as a way of dealing with anxiety. Individual behavior: a child adopts a parent's harsh, critical voice and uses it for self-criticism. So that is introjection that we see. They took the projection or the externalization onto themselves. Group dynamic: a group adopts external negative stereotypes or societal criticism as part of their own self-concept, often seen in marginalized communities. Compensation: making up for the perceived weaknesses by emphasizing strengths in other areas. Individual behavior: someone who feels especially inadequate becomes a workaholic, for example. Group dynamic: a dysfunctional team invest in one area like branding or public image to compensate for poor internal cohesion or competence. Splitting: it is normally when the behavior happen, there's something internally going on, what it is, and that what drives or has the intention of the projected behavior. Splitting: viewing people or situations in extremes, like good or bad, all good or all bad, black and white. There's no gray, there is no middle. Common in borderline dynamics: the extremes, going to the outliers. So individuals behavior: a person idealized a friend one day and then demonize them the next day. So there is no, you don't know where to stand. Are they here or there? What the So it lose. There is a loss of sense of alignment of self. Group dynamic: teams might view other departments as entirely incompetent or malicious, while seeing them as flawless, fueling internal conflict. Undoing: trying to cancel out unacceptable thoughts or behavior with action or rituals. And that's we see sometimes in learning new habits. But how can I undo the bad behavior and try to do the good one? So how the individual behavior after being rude, or a person becomes overly generous to make up for compensation. Group dynamic: after unethical behavior, workplace bullying, a company promotes a diversity initiative or donates to charity to restore its image. Normally, when you see this public image is highly infused and driven, something is happened, and this bring like social responsibility or moral compass into light, that this has been ignored or unnoticed. Now we have to make up for it. So once again, we say the mechanisms, the defense, psychological defense mechanisms. So you have to take: is it intentional or it is defensive? trying to protect, trying to defend. So denial, ignoring dysfunction or conflict. Projection, scapegoating a team member. Displacement, aggression toward lower status members. Rationalization, blaming external factors for internal failures. Reaction formation, overcompensation through exaggerated niceness. So, niceness, be nice, don't be nice. Be as you are. Say it. Be as you are. We carry a lot in our plate. We don't have to. Regression, reverting to blame and avoidance. Sublimation, channeling attention into productivity. And identification, mimicking dominant group behaviors. Taking the identity of the other, identification, taking the identity of the other, and this in early age at 7 years old. You see, the child is more drawn to the more powerful figure in the house sometimes, or driven to the most attractive member in the group, or the most likable member in the group, and whatever it resembles something, they have curiosity, or they have this biological infusion towards it, because it's all electrobiochemical. Sorry. Introjection, internalizing negative stereotypes. Compensation, sorry. Overarching, I have to drink some water. Yes. Compensation, overachieving in one area to mask insecurity. Splitting, us versus them, you versus me, I versus you. You know, the list goes on. Sometimes I versus I. So this is when the internal conflict started to shape something unhealthy. Splitting us versus them mindset within or between teams, undoing symbolic acts to erase guilt, like, as we say, promoting diversity campaign. Group dynamics implications, we see that defense mechanisms shape group dynamics in both constructive and destructive ways when unconscious or unregulated. Like, for example, it fosters a groupthink, enable toxic leadership, perpetuate bullying and mobbing, create divisions, and internalize oppression. When organized and processed, they can guide teams toward the growth, emotional intelligence, and resilience. That's when bringing it to the light and identify exactly what is in place. When you address the elephant in the room, do you have time for that? We don't know. That's why we say you be self-aware, be responsible for yourself, and start to educate yourself. Don't blame anyone. Okay, so I'm gonna see. So how these the psychological defense mechanisms have a significant role in aggression and culture intelligence, and their impact in interpersonal relationships. Defense mechanisms are unconscious psychological strategies used to reduce anxiety and maintain self-esteem. However, some mechanisms can amplify or mask aggression. For example, projection and aggression. Projection involves attributing one's unacceptable impulses to others. When individuals unconsciously project their own aggressive and hostile feelings that may perceive others as threatening, from a bit to a threat, and respond with preemptive aggression. For example, a person who feels hostile might assume others intended to harm them, justifying an aggression response. Displacement and redirected aggression. Displacement allows individual to redirect aggressive impulses from threatening source toward a safer target. Means that they cannot fight with their leadership. They are afraid, but they don't fear their peer or their subordinates. So they look at the weaker to dump on them. So you have to ask yourself, if there's any interaction you feel discomfort or uncomfortable with, is it dumping or is it emotional dumping? You have to understand. So we say, I'm sorry you're feeling this way, but are you okay? So when are you okay? And you acknowledge that to the person in front of you, that there's something wrong taking place, why you're treating me this way. In a group setting, this can lead to bullying, scapegoating, and mobbing. And it can be done, this is maladaptive behavior from early age, because it is a way, a let out of comfort, so to ease their discomfort, to raise their stress or the emotional flooding happening at this moment. So they are looking for the weakest target in their perception and they dump on them. So denial and justified aggression. So that's why we say there are adults, but they are acting from the inner child or still a child within an adult body. So there is missing milestones that needs to be addressed. Denial and justified aggression. Denial can enable aggression by refusing to acknowledge the emotional consequences of one's behavior or humanity of others. The mechanisms is often active in intergroup conflicts where the aggressor denies the harm inflicted on the opposing group or person. Rationalization of aggressive acts. I acted this way because. So justification. So rationalizations provides seemingly logical reasons for aggressive behavior, which allows individuals to act harmfully while maintaining a positive self-image. This is common in ideological violence or workplace aggression, where individuals justify hostility as necessary or deserved. So they are bringing justice to the situation, but they are increasing the susceptibility for harm. Let us see the dynamic of this psychological defense mechanisms with culture intelligence. Culture intelligence refers to a person's capability to function effectively in culturally diverse setting. It includes cognitive, motivational, behavioral, and metacognitive components. Defense mechanisms can interfere with or support the culture intelligence depending on how they function. Projection and culture misunderstanding, and this takes a whole, what system are you operating from? The stereotyping, the maladaptive, the cognitive load or the emotional load, the unhealthy relationships. If somebody doesn't know what healthy relationships on the personal and professional, so how come they understand that the impact of their behavior on others? So unless we bring it to the light, unless we educate and inform and be self-aware, how we know? So projecting one's own values, norms, or fears onto people from other cultures leads to ethnocentrism. And we see now like the whole or like the whole focus on the majority of the culture and ignoring the voice or the choices of those who are less represented. This distorts the interpretation of behavior in interculture settings and undermine culture sensitivity. Stereotyping as a defense mechanism, as I mentioned before. One person from a specific background, they are being judged by the whole nation. Even they didn't know them, even they haven't been with them, but you belong to this, so you are this. So it's like the part is representing the whole. So the part is representing the whole. Interjection of splitting often manifests as stereotyping, simplifying complex cultural realities into binary categories. And if you notice in some settings, the word, one of the psychological biases, one question say where you are from. This represents the implicit bias of the individual, which will determine what next and what will follow. So where you are from, and one of the questions that will determine what will comes next. These defenses mechanisms reduce anxiety about unfamiliar culture norms, but limit cognitive flexibility, a key component of culture intelligence. That's why we mentioned stay. Are you focused on the vision and mission, or are you bringing your package just to there is another agenda of your presence in the place? So understanding the intention and motives, that is complex. It takes time. Denial and culture avoidance. Some individuals use denial to minimize or ignore culture differences, believing we are all the same. While this may seem inclusive, it prevents authentic engagement with culture complexity and can result in culture incompetence. Sublimation and adaptive culture intelligence. Conversely, sublimation allows individuals to channel anxiety about culture differences into curiosity and learning. This positive defense supports metacognitive culture intelligence, promoting openness, empathy, and intercultural adaptation. Interplay between aggression and culture intelligence. In low culture intelligence environments, individual may interpret culture ambiguity or unfamiliar behaviors as threatening, activating primitive defense mechanisms like projection and splitting, divide and conquer. And we see this, it's a military divide and conquer, yes. And today I'm about the thing, because this is part of the culture. You understand the expression, the items, the gestures, the body language, lots of things within the culture representation of the behavior, cues into the human behavior, and understand what system they are operating from. And it takes time to understand. Let us see, this is another, let us do this today. It's about many hear these words, but from culture norm, many repeat it. They don't understand the mechanism without it. Divide and conquer, this is war zone. This is a war zone. This means there is no friendship. There is no real authentic relationships. This is a war zone if you say it. But if we repeat it, you don't understand its meaning and implications of the power dynamic. So we have to rethink that, why we say these things without understanding the root intercultural progression from. So let us see divide and conquer. Divide and conquer. Yes. See, it's a scary word. Divide and conquer strategy in political and sociology for stabilizing anti-democratic, illegitimate rule over people. This is from the Roman Empire. So let us see that. So it's understand when you say this, this means that there is division. There is insider and outsider dynamic. Somebody has to be out. Divide and conquer. Somebody is not included. Somebody has to be attacked or targeted. So you have to understand what are you talking about and its influence on the group dynamic. Divide and conquer. Divide and conquer. Let us see. Divide and conquer. I learned a lot. So I work it around 33 years, 32 years in my life. I have been working. I'm not working now, but I work at the 32 years in all capacities, in all settings, in all cultures, many languages. 32 years. I saw it all. So when you come to a point that you would like to bring the human dignity and integrity, it is tough. It is tough. Particularly when it has been taking things that you don't understand or why they are happening the way that they are happening. Yeah, so divide and conquer. Divide and conquer. So yeah, if you hear divide and conquer, understand the mechanism of it, and are you ready to take the ride? Because you're gonna understand that there will be aggression in place in behavior or in attitude toward one another. So you have to understand, are you ready for that? So this is your responsibility. You may look for it. It's a divide and conquer. It's politics. I don't know. I think I can provide the link instead of providing the definition. Because the definition. So one thing, because like the whole world in a constant state of war, and I stated this in other videos. In a constant state of war, is it official war or unofficial war? But you have to understand your stand from it. And you are not representing the whole. You are presenting yourself. That's it. All what you're responsible is yourself. That's it. If we're doing this with the perspective on the focus on the mission and the vision and the objectives and the goals and the outcomes and the feedback and the debriefing, the empowering of the team, of the whole, or the family or the community, things will shift. But unless there are other intergenerational and the cross-culture concepts and perceptual experiences and understanding about how things should happen in every day, despite all the changes that taking radically with technology and AI and the economic flip. I call it the economic flip because this has happened every like 10 years, like economic flip. So are we trained for that? Are we trained for all of that? You are not representing the whole, you are representing yourself. And everybody is walking outside, like outside their homes or inside their homes, they are representing themselves and what values they are standing for. So another items, comment today is about the expressions we hear, and some are taking it like normalcy. There is normalcy. Normalcy means taking it allowed the group thinking. It is decision is made without even you have to think about it. It's done. Yeah. So you become a passive recipient. You're not proactive or active in whatever things that happen in your life, or how you would like your life, and if this is respected. So understand this is another expression I'm bringing today. So it increases the likelihood of culture aggression and microaggression, xenophobia, the fear of other, ethnicity, race, gender, age, or something. There's xenophobia, and the global psychology now they are. That is one of the how to say, this is one of the our toward the global psychology, so we understand the mind from a global perspective. So that is one of the undergrad. Yes, in grad school it's more specialized, so we are deviating more into the part of the correlation between the neurobiology and behavioral medicine, psychology, and biochemistry. So we are into that from research focus. So we have to understand that you are heading into the global mindset. It is not so. We call it think globally, act locally. Think globally, act locally, because you take different perspective. Are we open to different perspectives? Yeah, so high culture intelligence individuals, however, are more likely to engage in adaptive defenses like sublimation, humor, anticipation, and the correlated higher intelligence with the sense of humor, because they diffuse the intensity of the situation. They diffuse it through humor. They understand that there's tension in place, but they are not going to engage in that. So they use either sublimation, they pretend to be going along, and okay, let it be, or humor or anticipation. That is predictory. Anticipation means you know it is coming, so how you are gonna react or interact with it. Reducing reactive aggression and promoting culture harmony. So you have something to put into place when understanding culture intelligence in correlation with aggression. So the DSM-5 categorize personality disorders into 3 clusters, each with varying relationships to stress reactivity and sympathetic adrenal medullary axis dysregulation. This is the first threat response or perceived threat, and leading to the dysregulation of the central nervous system and reactivity. The first line. For example, cluster A, odd, eccentric, paranoid, schizotypal. Individuals with this cluster may misinterpret neutral stimuli as threats, leading to chronic SAM activation. For example, paranoid personality disorder involves persistent mistrust and suspicion, driving a heightened fight-flight response, even in non-threatening situations. Cluster B, dramatic, erratic, antisocial, borderline, histrionic, narcissistic, particularly relevant to aggression and gaslighting behaviors. Borderline personality involves intense emotional dysregulation and heightened autonomic arousal, often linked to childhood trauma. Narcissistic and antisocial traits may engage in manipulative behaviors like gaslighting. This is to break down the identity of their target as a way to regulate self-esteem and emotional tension. Cluster C, anxious, fearful, avoidant, dependent, obsessive compulsive. Chronic anxiety can keep the same anxiety persistently activated, leading to somatic symptoms and emotional avoidance. Individuals may experience muscle tension, digestive issues, cardiovascular symptoms, resulting in long-term sympathetic arousal. Somatization is a physical expression of psychological distress, common in individuals with chronic SAM activation or post-traumatic stress. The body keeps the score, or this is Dr. Van der Kolk. He's a medical doctor. You see, this who are more really interesting about what actually happening and compromising and what rupture occur. They are starting from the physiological response manifestation. So the body often remembers traumatic experiences, even if conscious mind does not. A concept explored deeply by Van der Kolk. This is the Trauma Research Foundation. Chronic SAM activation contributes to muscle and pain tension, headaches, gastrointestinal issues. You feel there are knots in the stomach. Chronic fatigue. We have the chronic fatigue syndrome. Somatic expression can become ingrained patterns, especially in the original trauma occurred during early development when the nervous system is still forming. So, and I found myself just researching the location and manifestation of the trauma and how you feel this somatic experience of the pain, the trauma trapped, that unexpressed, the suppressed. The body does not open under pressure. So if you feel that you have to do strenuous activities so the trauma can be released, no. The body, once the body feels safety, it starts to open or respond to treatment or respond to intervention. As long as there is tension and fear, lack of trust in severity of a stress response, there's disconnection between the body and whatever is being said or done. So we have to understand this pathophysiological response of a traumatic experience. That's when the first thing you have to establish safety and trust first, and this takes time. Like practitioner or therapists or whoever is in clinical setting, they would like fast. I think this approach is being evidence-based, is gonna, you haven't established the body, haven't identified the sense of safety. The body, and this is in the body when it lives within the crisis state. It's a physiological, pathophysiological. It's not only mental, psychological, or emotional or anything. It is pathophysiological, the crisis state. So the body does not open under pressure. It opens when it feels safe. So the culture, the grind culture of do, does the body listen? Then it will be responsive. Pressure sustains inner resistance and rigidity. Learn how to establish safety before tension and the mechanical patterns that the body hasn't experienced yet. As I said, you are not negative recipient. You are part of the process. You are a partner. You are collaborating. You are cooperating. Learn where the trauma is trapped. For example, the fascia stores that's a lower the protective layer of the organs, the fascia. It stores the tension, breathing loses amplitude, and the central nervous system gets trapped in the alert mood, the survival, the fight, flight, freeze, impulsivity, and rigidity. The body keeps the score. The body formed a command map of defense. Now the body reorganized, divide and conquer. So the body has its own army and defense as well. So it makes a map, a command map over time. Tension, automatic reactions, altered gene expression, posture, rigidity or tension in the coxal bone or the hip bone and the sacrum, not feeling safe, pelvic central node, fear of letting go, psoas and the LESs or psoas. Tension, rigidity, unexplained anxiety, deep fatigue, respiratory diaphragm, abdomen, rib cage, and upper chest, stuckness, shame, knots in the stomach, solar plexus, celiac ganglia, sternum, and precardium, shielded heart. Shielded heart. So I say, you are so protective. You are on guard. We know these words, but we don't know what they mean. There is trauma in these regions. So how to know your body language and communicate. It's like a baby. How you communicate with a baby, but not to manipulate or taking advantage of or gaining control, and then you cause another damage. So be aware. Identify the voice. It's coming from a trusting, safe place or manipulation. Thoracic outlet, scalene and the clavicles, cervical subdiaphragm, and hyoid bone, the flow of voice trapped. When the shock happened at early age, it is harder to express their voice even in the critical state. Glottis larynx, irregular pitch due to emotional suppression, muscle tension, dysphonia or MTD, abnormal tension in the laryngeal muscles, chronic tension, jaw and the mandibular joint, chronic stress, nervous system dysregulation. And we see this is in majority, especially in adolescence, early childhood and adolescence. Somatic symptoms, especially in the jaw, neck, and back. Tongue and lingual frenium, difficulty articulating speech clearly, sensations of tightness or lump in the throat. Dysfunction in swallowing or oral motor control, tongue tension or stiffness, difficulty with verbal fluency or confidence, mouth breathing instead of nose breathing, linked to stress and anxiety, because the nose, breathing from the nose activated the upper diaphragmatic parasympathetic response. This is rest and digest. Alter the muscle tone in tongue muscles, the changes in saliva production, dry mouth, hypersalivation, difficulty coordinating speech or swallowing under stress. Sentinel note occiput atlas junction and vagus area, muscle tension and postural changes, that is the collapse around the neck and upper cervical spine, altered the cranial dura mater tension, which may manifest as palpable or sentient node tension, dysregulation of the vagus nerve and the autonomic nervous system, impacting emotional regulation, digestion, and inflammation, heightened the sympathetic nervous system activity, causing persistent muscle guarding and at the occiput atlas junctions, neck and head tension or pain, difficulty with emotional regulation due to vagus nerve dysfunction, digestive issues like irritable bowel syndrome, as vagus nerve influence gut motility, breathing difficulty related to parasympathetic imbalance, voice or swallowing issues, since the vagus control of the larynx. The sentinel node of the occiput atlas junction may be a somatic footprint of early trauma, especially adverse childhood experiences, through its effect on vagus nerve function and chronic muscular tension. So we see vagus nerve stimulation is part of the intervention. The body keeps the scores, understand how humans intentionally or unintentionally compromised one another. It is essential because nothing is worth it. So, what can regulate the SAM axis? Mindfulness-based distress reduction help us down regulate sympathetic activity and enhance parasympathetic tone. Breath work and vagal nerve stimulation, deep breathing techniques, increase vagal tone, counteracting SAM activation, somatic experiences or sensomotor psychotherapy can target stored physical tension and help release trauma from the body. Dialectical behavioral therapy is useful for cluster B individuals, especially those with borderline personality disorder, in managing emotional regulation and reducing impulsive aggression. Organizational attention interventions promote psychological safety, and I made a video about psychological safety in schools and workplace. Implement zero tolerance policies for harassment. Train leaders for trauma-informed leadership and conflict resolution. Address toxic group dynamic like scapegoating, mobbing through psychoeducation workshops and empathy training. The sympathetic medullary axis is central to the body's immediate stress response. When dysregulated, especially through chronic stress or trauma, it can contribute to a range of psychological disorders, social dysfunctions, somatic symptoms. Understanding this axis provides a foundational basis for interventions that span the biological, psychological, and social domains of human function. And that I'm going to explain in the biopsychosocial model. Biopsychosocial model, one of the models we use for intervention. So there are like key stress response systems, like sympathoadrenal medullary axis responded to acute stress, that is everyday situation. If we are living in a stress culture, the world no longer this breathe and rest and digest. It's always something takes your attention. So what is here? Involves activation of the sympathetic nervous system, stimulating the adrenal medulla to release epinephrine and norepinephrine. Effects include increased heart rate, blood pressure, glucose mobilization, and alertness. And when these actions come from highly educated, well-established communities, this is intentional. So you have to question what are the intentions and motives. So the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, HPA axis, that is your, I called it microchips, or your transistor, or your generator, or your, it is the processing, it's the core processing system of the body functions. Responds to longer term chronic stress. The hypothalamus releases corticotropin releasing hormone, CRH, stimulates the pituitary to secrete corticotropic hormone, or ACTH, which triggers the adrenal cortex to release cortisol. Cortisol regulates metabolism, immune response, and memory, but is harmful in excess. That is part of the excitotoxicity. The amygdala, prefrontal cortex, and the hippocampus are core brain regions involved in emotional processing and stress regulation. The central nervous system modulates both SAM and HPA-axis, and in turn affected by them. It's bidirectional relationships. If, as I said, look for teamwork, look for organizational work, look for like a complex network and complex the models of operations. Look at the body. Chronic activation due to maladaptive defenses, defense mechanisms such as denial, projection, and splitting can distort the perception, distorted reality, and increase perceived threat. That is reactivity, activating the stress system unnecessarily or excessively. Imagine if this happened. And it happened in some, but it depends on are they aware? Positive defense mechanisms, regulation and resilience, like adaptive mechanisms like sublimation, humor, or anticipation, can downregulate the SAM and HB axis by reducing emotional threat and improving coping. Sublimation allows the stress to be channeled constructively, reducing its sympathetic arousal. Humor activates the parasympathetic nervous system. There is laughter therapy. If you would like to attend the session, laughter therapy, promoting relaxation. These adaptive strategies support the prefrontal cortex activity, which inhibits the amygdala, reducing emotional reactivity and improving stress recovery. Long-term effect of dysregulation, when maladaptive defenses contribute to chronic SAM and HB activation. Several long-term consequences, like physiological outcomes: hypertension, immune suppression, insulin resistance, gastrointestinal issues. Neurological and psychological outcomes: amygdala enlargement, increased fear and anxiety, prefrontal cortex thinning, impaired decision making, hippocampal atrophy, memory problems, and PTSD risk. Increased vulnerability to anxiety, depression, and personality disorders. So integrating culture intelligence, when individuals have low culture intelligence and rely on maladaptive defenses like stereotyping or denial, the SAM and HB axis are more likely to be activated in intercultural situations due to increased uncertainty and perceived threat. And your brain doesn't like ambiguity. I want to know. For example, someone who projects their insecurities onto members of another culture may experience heightened SAM activation, interpreting neutral behavior as hostile. Conversely, high cultural intelligence individuals use adaptive strategies like self-reflection, empathy, emotional regulation, which engage the parasympathetic nervous system and suppress excessive stress response. They are aware. We have another part is situational awareness. What is going on right now and how it impacted me internally? And with the training, this happened in literally seconds. So it comes a second nature. It comes like normal for the brain to identify the red flags and readapt. It takes time, but you have to understand what's happening internally first. Alignment with the self and self-awareness is critical to how you interpret what is perceived or what is going on around you and how it impacts you on the neuro pathophysiological way. I hope this will make sense that and you make sense of what's happening and why all the chronic illness and those who are presented with any form of pain or disorder, what is happening around the theme. It's a whole matrix, it's a whole different tapestry we have to be aware of, and we have to raise awareness for that. Positive defense mechanisms, regulations, and resilience. Adaptive mechanisms and sublimation, humor, and anticipation. Anticipation means I know this happening. I know this will happen. So, promoting what if scenarios. What if scenarios? This is always like, know that if something happened, what should I do then? So you are mentally prepared. You build this neural muscles anticipation that if this happen, okay, what then? It is like programming, the conditioning. Yes, like in the coding language. If 1, 2, 3, 4, and then. So you have alternatives of operational tags. So adaptive mechanisms like sublimation, humor, or anticipation can downregulate the SAM and HPA-axis by reducing emotional threat and improving coping. Sublimation allows the stress to be channeled constructively, reducing sympathetic arousal. Humor activates the parasympathetic nervous system, promoting relaxation. But be aware, when a person in crisis, uh, humor can be a trigger to them, leading to negative consequences. So be aware of your language in sensitive situations. When laughing, smiling can trigger. These adaptive, as we say, culture sensitivity or trauma culture sensitivity or trauma informed sensitive environment means I am aware that everybody is going through something. So I have to be aware of that. These adaptive strategies support the prefrontal cortex activity, which inhibits the amygdala overactivity, the emotional, reducing and amygdala with the hippocampus. Both they form a team together with reactive. That is negative experience, negative emotion flooding, reducing emotional reactivity and improving stress recovery. When maladaptive defenses contribute to chronic SAM and HPA-axis activation, several long consequences, as I stated earlier, in physiological and neurological manifestation. So, how this can manifest through lifespan? So, we have this prenatal or infancy from 0 to 2, that is rapid brain development, sensory integration, stress regulation via caregiver. So, they are dependent on somebody to regulate. And that is critical. Is the caregiver or the person in response regulated? And that the outcomes. Defense mechanism, primitive defenses like withdrawal, denial, or somatic responses. They have a stomach ache, they are vomiting, they have a sore throat, they are coughing, they are having a headache. All this trauma. If we understand how the body interpret, okay, I'm gonna protect you. So when the body we normally that is another part of the culture. We normally get used to pay attention to the somatic symptoms or the body, like the vomiting, the fever, the nausea, the headache, the dizziness. But it's far away. We understand what is its correlation with perceived reality, perceived stress, perceived threat, and perceived pain. You say, I don't have the words to express it, or say it, my body will project it. So we have to understand, from early age, what is presented in the equation. So for HPA-axis, central nervous system, and SAM, early overactivation of SAM and HPA-axis system due to neglect or trauma. From a whole person approach, foundation of attachment, dysregulated or arousal may impair trust, emotional regulation, or emotional formation. So it can distort the sense of what this means. Yeah. Some intervention, responsive caregiver, co-regulation, early intervention, like in infant massage, bonding therapies. And every time I see a mom with a child, I say the power of your touch in their spinal cord. There are points. I took pressure points. One of the stage of my journey, the pressure points, and I asked the mom for the thumbs on the spinal cord, and nicely and gently massage this. This is the connection and activation of really cool for their neck, for their hair, for their forehead, for their chests, and for their thighs. Because sometimes when it's trauma, specifically mom, when the mother has been in unresolved state of trauma, it is trapped in the body in a specific, as I stated, the body keep the scores, and we go back to this section, how they manifest and where the jaws, the neck, the chest, the stomach, or the abdominal area, the pelvic floor, the bottom of the feet, all these, or cranial nerves, that, or the pressure points, that. But gently, when the mom shape this bond and shape the connection, it eases the stress is maybe trapped and passed from the mom to the child. So because they don't expect that the child is fully came to life with fully regulated central nervous system. It needs a connection. We were not trained on that, or we're not aware of that, but now we know. Now we have to speak out. So understand this is infant massage and bonding therapies. Bonding therapies is sometimes there are sessions of, especially from 0 to 5. Bonding therapies is so critical because it is detrimental till 16 years old or 16 of age. Okay, early childhood, 2 to 6 years old. So this is sensitive periods for language, emotional, and social brain development. Imagine if the child raised in unsafe environment or domestic violence, they are gonna see this is normal. So the sense of being I am not safe is gonna be like embedded in their neurobiology, and everything will be built up. The world is not a safe place to be. Projection, splitting, aggression, and denial. This is defense mechanisms for HPA-axis and SAM and the central nervous system. Stress systems are easily triggered. Prefrontal cortex is still underdeveloped. Formation, this is when formation of self-concept, insecure attachment may entrench primitive defenses. So some interventions, play therapy, secure attachment formation, and trauma-informed parenting. And I see now the solutogenic, the design of the environment, how to regulate. I see this aqua park and things, but safe for early children. And just playing in the water and sensing the water and connecting with others through this, it is the central nervous system from early age. I'm not talking about swimming pool, just streams of water like falling. Uh, Let us see. For middle childhood, 7 to 12, that is identity, and that is when the shaping of some core behaviors. Development of executive function, empathy, and peer-related stress response. So we see defense mechanisms like repression, displacement, interjection. HB activity begins to stabilize emotional memory systems, consolidate. So identity and moral understanding shaped by defense patterns, peer conflict can reinforce maladaptive responses. Social emotional learning and CBT empathy training may help. But anyway, nothing will replace a true connection, a true bonding, and the sense of safety. Yeah. And say if the body doesn't feel safe, it's all just performance. Adolescents from 13 to 18 years old, the limbic system. So here, remodeling of the prefrontal cortex and the limbic system, identity and social belonging central. We see idealization, reaction formation, and rationalization. We see high SAM and HB reactivity to social stress. Peer evaluation intensifies and stress load. Defenses influence identity, peer aggression, like bullying, self-esteem. Identity supportive therapy can help. Group counseling, mindfulness based stress reduction can help. Again, if the body doesn't feel safe, it's not open, it is not recipient. Early adulthood, 19 to 30, is full maturation of the prefrontal cortex and emotion regulation circuits, compensation, intellectualization, and repression. Stress resilience improves, but maladaptive defenses may persist. Defenses impact career, relationships, intimacy, unresolved early trauma. So we go back to psychodynamic Freud therapy, psychodynamic. Right now they say they are going to remove psychodynamic. I don't know. I like Freud because it goes back into this inner child and what has been missed and what represented to the child, the sense of authority, power, whatever raised the curiosity and they want to attach to when it comes to intimacy. So that is like the bonding, the love, the maturity, the attention, the affection, all of that, which part of they or which model they are attracted to. So that is the whole goal, because it can derive even in adulthood and the person doesn't know. and it may affect their relationships badly because they don't have these boundaries, because of this, like the perceptual experience and what actually taking place, what actually is happening. So we see here emotional intelligence coaching and career life mentorship. And some like the aggressor like this maladaptive behavior to continue because it serves a function. So it is only the personal responsibility that this doesn't serve me anymore. Doesn't align with who I am right now. So how come I can perceive that? It can be like shocking for the aggressor. It can be like present like very high harmful consequences as punishment, because it is not expected that the target will understand exactly to become self-aware or be aware of who they are and what they want in life and what works for them. If this if this uh, in any way it doesn't align with the aggressor, there will be a punishment and severe consequences in thinking of, oh, I grow out of this. I know self-respect right now, and that doesn't work for me. So this for the aggressor, it escalate the situation. It can be subtle. The punishment it can be like very systematically, and the blame will be shifted onto the target, and they become the problem in the in the environment. So they are the problem. They are. So they started to isolate, and they started to scapegoating the target. And I say self-awareness, when it comes from early age, it saves the lives. If we would like to save lives, if we would like to save lives. Middle adulthood, 31 to 60, integration of cognition, emotion, and stress management, sublimation, altruism. Do you see this go in philanthropy and doing like whatever save the world projects? So humor, mature defenses, or chronic denial, rationalization. And this is an under life stress. This is when the vicious cycle, the target couldn't get out of it. So they are into this cognitive dissonance, the dissociation, distortion, and everything. But however, it impacts the neurobiology on the chronic illness and psychiatric conditions with severity. Chronic stress may reactivate HPA dysfunction, burnout, midlife crisis. Quality of life, relationships, it can affect parenting style, leadership, are shaped by defenses. So you see this constant state of conflict, disagreement, disharmony, misalignment, and it's not a healthy state or a healthy life to be in. Self-reflection practices, somatic therapies, resilience, and legacy work. But however, unless there is self-awareness, this is dysfunctional. We have to address it. The change of the behavior, it is tough, because if it serve a function and get them what they want, then it's become like ingrained, rooted maladaptive behavior. So it depends on the decision of the target. Okay, is this aligned with me or not? And it comes with a price. It comes with a price when the target started to stand up for self and have a voice, and this is not accepted or respected or not expected from them to be, it became a life of isolation. It became a life of disengagement, of excommunication and scapegoating. So it can sip the life. It comes with another pressure, another tension, another realm of navigation. So still there's harm done. Late adulthood, 60 years plus, brain volume decline in the seed. The what we are reaping globally on the neurodegenerative diseases and chronic psychiatric conditions like schizophrenia, major depressive disorder, um, uh, other like like very high um, multiple sclerosis is a lot. So increase the reliance on emotional memory and meaning making sometimes. Yeah. So if you understand suppression, acceptance, humor, or rigidity, denial, if unresolved, the trauma exists. Decrease the stress tolerance. So the wind of tolerance and go back in the early stages of development. You see, because the neurocortex, the cortices are not fully in line in the prefrontal cortex. So therefore, we see very their window of tolerance like this is with conceptual experiences and perceptual experiences. Positive ones, we're gonna increase this window of tolerance. And as I mentioned, if your window of tolerance is like this, you're gonna conquer the world. See the impact of all aggressive behaviors and the vicious cycles of the chronic stress. It brings the window tolerance back to the infancy. So imagine it's like a regression. It's like declining. That's why we say it decline. Decrease the stress tolerance, chronic HPA-axis activation linked to dementia and depression. So defenses influence ability to age adaptively, either integration or bitterness. We could see a lot of bitterness in many, like it's a sort of regret because I wish I go back and do it differently, but there is no way back. So they are entrapment. We call it trauma entrapment, and that is tough. But if there is trauma entrapment in adolescence, it can be open up through the sense of safety, establishing a true sense of safety so the body can open and the healing start to process. Life review therapy, generativity, focus, community belonging, and the social engagement. Let us see. So, for example, vulnerable population in early childhood from 0 to 8, that is identity. So we promote psychological resilience, neurobiological protection, and healthy identity development, emotional self-awareness, relational safety, early defense patterns detection, and caregiver education. So you have to understand how to be self-aware. The adult has to be self-aware first, has to be educated. If they are not self-aware, they has to be educated. So we have to shift our education into this, how to reconstruct the sense of integrity and true sense of healthy relationships within self-aware first. So teach your children to name and express their basic emotions, but not only that, how you feel it in your body, where you feel it mostly in your body. Some feel, I said, the cramping in their stomach. Some say the tightening of the chest. Some say the tension in their shoulders. Some say I cannot move or something like that. So they have expression. They have like their body sense, because the emotion is not happening only mentally or psychologically, it is a physiological reaction. So train them. We say body scan. That is why we say body scan when you feel the tension most. And you start to how to ease this tension gradually with establishing a sense of safety. Some don't have the sense, the safety of touch, like somebody lay their hands on them or come close to them. So allow them to do it and to start the connection with themselves first. Where do you find the tension? And how you make this inner child, the wounded inner child, feel safe in their body first, so their brain, their mind can adhere to comply. So I'm bad today. Use tools like feeling charts or storybooks. Integrate. I used to do a story time within the whole class. So going a journey with colors and sensory, and it's the integration of the whole child. And that was my obsession, but unfortunately, yeah. Anyway, integrate into play and daily routine. However, back in times, even with adolescents, I taught adolescents and I mentored college students. Uh, so we didn't know. I know the sense of science from early age and its importance in activating the mind in a positive way. So that was my perspective. So that's my upbringing. However, I didn't know totally the full scenario of the trauma and how the body keeps the score. And this is the journey of endeavor, of curiosity and understanding. And it came from the lowest point in life. It doesn't came in flourishing point. It came from the lowest point of life. So we left with a choice. So you are fearfully and wonderfully made. So body awareness, encouraging awareness of bodily sensations linked to emotions, is not only how you feel. This is the images, like the faces, like this is happy, this is sad, this is that. How you feel it in your body, and not only telling what it is. Create the experience, and then how you feel. So where do you feel it in your body? And why you feel that? How can I make you safe? How can I make you feel safe? And this starts with caregivers. Use body scans and where do you feel it? Prompts, practice grounding, stomping feet, touching textures. So the somatic experiences, it has to go with sensations. So the same time, like walking barefoot in outside, that is a whole somatic experience. That is regulation of the central nervous system and releasing the extra charges within your body that will activate the zombies. So if you have an extra charge, walk bare feet for like 15 to 10, 20 minutes. Make ice bath for your feet only and see how it goes. One thing, walking, I said that this is activates like walking for like 30 minutes, 45 minutes or 1 hour. It activates the brain drive neurotropic factor, and it's a protective factor for your brain. Walking, baking, like bread baking, the need of the dough itself, it's a somatic experience. And see where your body feel the tension when you are baking. why you felt this tension, especially in a state. You take that brings attention, awareness. It's not you are only in the go on autopilot. You are paying attention. You are bringing awareness to the experience. You are bringing the redirecting the the neurological circuitries into a whole different experience and infusion for the good neurotransmitters, but in a positive way, and connecting the mind and the body. There's a lot of things we did, like the hand painting. Like, it is only the movement of the hand within the paint. It is only the movement. It is sensory, and then you see the tension where it strikes in your body and why, and go through this. And if you recall these experiences, what you can do differently next time, what works and what does not work. So you understand the establishment of sense of safety. I have to connect with the body first. If the person couldn't connect with their own body, how come they can connect with others? So we have to have this sense of safety first, self-awareness, and identify, be detective. Safe expression of needs. So the needs and wants, especially among females, that some cultures say the lifestyle, they don't have right for anything, or they don't have to say this or that. So just being this safe and trusted space to say what's my concern and how I feel, and I say, I see, I heard you, I understand, but let us see it from different perspective. Are you open for that? But this is a different language of healing, a different language. Yeah, I don't know. So teach children that it's okay to express needs without shame or fear. Model calm expression of needs, use role play and social stories. Reflective practice for caregivers, help adults recognize their own emotional triggers and defense mechanisms. Still, you are work in progress. You are not fully healed. You understand there is a sort of relapse or reworking the same emotion, and you have to revisit and you say what you need to do. So just drinking a sip of water like this, it can modulate. Journaling, supervision, mindfulness practices, psychoeducation on attachment and stress response. So we have to address the risk for stress-related pathology. That is all biomarkers and neuroimaging. Biomarkers and neuroimaging that tell us what rupture that occurred, what experience they need to establish this sense of safety. So from another thing that from neurodevelopmental protection or defense patterns of recognition, for example, sensory dysregulation, risk behavior avoidance, aggression, or zoning out. You can like protective response, you can provide sensory safe environments, occupational therapy. So this is engaging with this narrative of the task, not the task itself, the narrative it represents, memories, emotions, thoughts, feelings, what infuse in this experience. Maladaptive defense indicators, frequent denial, blaming others, forgetting emotions. So protective response is co-regulation, naming defenses, gently validating experience. Hypervigilance or shutdown, risk behavior, easily startled, disconnection, somatic complaints. So protective response, somatic regulation, blocking, deep pressure, routine, and predictability. Brain likes predictability. You have to have the circle of security, strengthening caregiver child attachment, like through visual aids, parenting coaching, repair conversation, child parent psychotherapy, like trauma repair through relationships, co-play sessions, and narrative repair. So, say how many present scenarios and they role play these scenarios so their child can build this neuro muscles resiliency and capacity to face the stress. It is going to happen, but how am I going to respond it? It will make a huge difference. Theraplay or engagement through structure play, eye contact, nurture games, turn taking. So we implementing the trauma-informed training for educators, calm corners, emotion coaching, promote safe relational environments. Like pediatricians screen for stress, integrate behavioral health, early identification of emotional and relational risk. Mindful parenting, increase emotional attunement and stress regulation, because sometimes parents themselves they live from a state of dysregulation. There is unresolved trauma. There is this wounded child, but there is some behaviors in their children that trigger this wounded child and bring all the life back together. So we have to understand to differentiate between they need to learn, they are work in progress, and you are work in progress, but they are for the future. The past is done. So how we can attune to that? Mindful self-compassion, like a stop technique. Reflective supervision, prevent projection and burnout in caregivers and teachers, like weekly and bi-weekly clinical reflections. So the peer support is so critical in health culture now. Trauma-informed psychoeducation help adults recognize their own defense patterns, training on attachment style and intergenerational trauma. Imagine that, yeah, you're allowing the junk just to pour from one generation to the other. It has to stop. It has to stop, and somebody has to stop it. Neurodevelopment over active stress systems like SAM, HPA-axis, risk of ADHD, anxiety, and dissociation. Some intervention regulation through co-regulation and routine. Attachment, insecure attachment, relation avoidance or dependence, secure pace of resilience in relationships, emotional intelligence, limited awareness, use of maladaptive, ability to name or manage and communicate emotions, lifelong health, increased risk of chronic illness and psychiatric conditions. So the intervention is improve the resilience, reduce health disparities. Okay, so I come to one of my main work in school. It is the biopsychosocial model and attribution theory framework. That is part of it. It's not all of it. So the biopsychosocial model proposes that health and illness result from a dynamic interaction between biological, psychological, and social factors, rather than being purely biological or purely psychosocial. Biological factors, genetics, epigenetics, that is the gene environment interaction or phenotypes and changes in the gene expression. Neurobiology and the brain structure, immune system function, that's why I have psychoneuroimmunology, hormones and neuroendocrine transmitters, that's why I have behavioral neuroscience, injury, infection, and chronic diseases, that's why I have the physiology class, and the neuroanatomy. So that's all like integration with all of this, with all types of psychology. As it was intensive. A person with a genetic predisposition to depression may develop symptoms following a period of physical illness or sleep disruption. Psychological factors, personality trait, neuroticism, optimism, the big five. Cognitive patterns like catastrophizing or self-blaming, defensive mechanisms, emotional regulation, attachment styles, trauma history. A child exposed to early neglect may develop maladaptive defenses mechanisms leading to emotional dysregulation and anxiety later in life. Social factors, family dynamics, culture, beliefs, socioeconomic status, educational literacy, peer relationships and community, discrimination and marginalization. And this goes into the human ecological model, or the system theory and complexity theory. A socially isolated elderly adult with low income may experience chronic stress, worsening their physical and mental health. So health condition, depression, low serotonin levels, family history, psychological negative thinking, poor coping skills, social isolation, underemployment, and stigma, chronic pain, nerve damage or inflammation, catastrophizing or fear of pain, family stress, work loss. So substance use, genetic predisposition, altered reward pathway, trauma history, impulsivity, peer pressure, poverty, access to drugs. So for like a psychosocial model with interdisciplinary approach for the medicine, treating chronic illness with combined medication, counseling, and social support. In psychology, understanding the mental disorders stem from multiple interacting factors: social work, addressing environmental stressors, and family systems that impact well-being. Public health, designing culturally sensitive, community-based interventions. Education, supporting children with learning disabilities through academic, emotional, and family support. Let us see that is the implication from multidisciplinary approach in the health field. In biomedical model, focus in whole person. That's the biopsychosocial model, focus on the whole person, the biomedical disease pathology. So it is part and not whole. The scope of biopsychosocial, mind, body, environment. Biomedical is physical body only. For treatment approach, biopsychosocial, multidimensional therapy, medications, social support. For the biomedical, medical only, or surgery or drugs. Patient role, active participant, that is a biopsychosocial. For the biomedical is passive recipient, and this is a core part in the cross culture, because some cultures give the whole trust for their practitioner to make their decision on their behalf, to make the decisions, to the choices, everything that they trust. So, and that is happen with lower health literacy and understanding the practitioner-patient relationships or communication. So the biopsychosocial see the any representation of illness or diseases or disorders, complex and dynamics. So there are other players. Biomedical, linear, cause and effect. A biopsychosocial model is a more holistic and humanistic approach to care, and that is why biopsychosocial model is core in humanistic medicine model. Promotes individualized treatment, recognize the impact of trauma and environment, encourages interdisciplinary collaboration, support the preventive and promotive health strategies. That is why normally we tend to go from early intervention and prevention. We understand that the late stages or the middle stages of the allostatic load, it needs management. That is care management. However, we lean into, maybe this is part of the bias, we lean into early intervention and prevention. Some challenges can be difficult to operationalize in practice because it's a big umbrella for the model of care. Some clinicians focus on one domain more than others. That is when the expertise or the excellency or the comfort zone of practice. Time intensive or assessment and treatment planning may require cross-disciplinary training and integration. That is why research comes at the forefront, because research gave us this big umbrella to navigate through and present a new interpretation or translation of the disease from multidisciplinary as a multifactorial aspect of the presentation of the condition. The biopsychosocial model is especially useful in working with the children, trauma survivors, and the marginalized groups, because this dissect into the neurodivergence. And now some labs, I understand in California, focus on the neurodiversion of the brain structure and function. That is the complexity of the biological sensitivity. Psychological vulnerability, low self-esteem, PTSD, social risk factors, abuse, poverty, racism, all must be addressed together to promote healing and prevent re-traumatization. In children exposed to early adversity, a trauma-informed biopsychosocial model approach would then include biological, nutritional support, sleep regulation, sensory integration, and therapy. And part of my training is sleep, stress, inflammation, immunity, and psychosocial distress. So part of it. So psychological, attachment-based therapy, emotional coaching, social safe caregiving, community support, advocacy for education, and housing. So from comprehensive thesis of the biopsychosocial correlated with aggression and all what mentioned above that we said, the sympathetic adrenal medullary SAM axis, psychological defense mechanisms, aggression, trauma, and cultural intelligence, vulnerability during sensitive periods in neurodevelopment, lifespan development impacts, intervention for vulnerable population. The biopsychosocial model introduced by Angel 1977 provides a holistic understanding of the biological, psychological, and social systems interact in shaping human development, behavior, illness, and healing when applied to trauma, neurodevelopment, defense mechanisms, and intervention. The biopsychosocial model helps in identifying multi-layered root causes and comprehensive solutions. With SAM axis and HPA-axis and central nervous system, exposure to early stressors activates SAM axis and HPA-axis, leading to chronic cortisol and adrenaline release. Overactivation of these systems during sensitive period alters brain structure like the amygdala, hippocampus, and prefrontal cortex, contributing to emotional dysregulation and maladaptive defenses. In vulnerable children, this may present hypervigilance, impulsivity, or dissociation, biological response, which may be misread as behavioral issues. These neurobiological changes can set the stage for aggression, scapegoating, bullying, stress-induced behaviors, especially in environments lacking safety or emotional support. Psychological defenses mechanisms like projection, splitting, denial emerge in early development as the psyche way to cope with internal conflict and external threats. These defenses, if not integrated or matured, may evolve into maladaptive personality traits or disorders, especially under chronic stress or trauma. Traumatized individuals may externalize their pain as aggression, internalize it as shame, affecting self-worth and behavior across relationships. Psychological defenses are linked to both neurobiological stress response through the biopsychosocial biological domain and social outcomes like mobbing or gaslighting, especially when trauma remains unresolved trauma. Social environments include the family dynamics, the socioeconomic status, peer groups, and culture norms shape the expression and modulation of both stress responses and defense mechanisms. An environment that tolerate or reward aggression or scapegoating, toxic school or workplace cultures, maladaptive defenses become reinforced. Culture intelligence, or the ability to navigate diverse social systems empathetically and effectively, is diminished in individuals stuck in defense-based egocentric modes of functioning. The biopsychosocial model highlights how social factors, neglect, abuse, culture biases can perpetuate trauma cycles and contribute to lifespan dysfunction if not countered with intentional relational interventions. In sensitive periods of neurodevelopment, like infancy, adolescence, are critical for establishing self-regulation, empathy, and social cognition. Early trauma or toxic environments can lead to persistent use of immature defenses and the chronic activation of SAM and HPA-axis, laying groundwork for lifelong health issues, relational dysfunction, or personality pathology. Over time, unresolved trauma reshape the whole person, biologically, chronic diseases, psychologically, anxiety, dissociation, socially, poor attachment, violence. The biopsychosocial model supports early layered interventions, biological, psychological, and social, to buffer the long-term impact of early adverse experiences. Biological is a regulation of nervous system, sleep, nutrition, mindfulness to restore homeostasis in stress response systems. Psychologically, attachment-based therapy, emotional literacy training, mature defense mechanisms build emotional insight. Social, caregiver education, community inclusion, trauma-informed system promote safety, reduce marginalization. Tailored biopsychosocial model, biopsychosocial based interventions are vital for trauma exposed children, as they often present with neurobiological dysregulation, immature psychological defenses, and adverse social environment, all of which must be addressed simultaneously to heal, for the healing to occur. Aggression and scapegoating and mobbing result from biological overarousal, psychological projection, and toxic social climate. Trauma and defense mechanisms, psychological defenses become embedded in the body and behavior if trauma is unprocessed. Sensitive periods of development, early stress affects brain and behavior. Biopsychosocial interventions can rewire responses. Lifespan impact, early adversity affect the whole person. Healing requires holistic, lifelong support. Culture intelligence, maturity of defenses, and emotional integration allows for better social navigation and empathy. So, biopsychosocial model with attribution theory framework to promote to address trauma, psychological defense mechanisms, aggression, scapegoating, gaslighting, neurodevelopmental and life span development, and vulnerable populations. Attribution theory explains how people interpret the causes of their own and others' behavior. So have you ever attribute something to you or others or environment as well? Introduced by Hayter 1958 and expanded by Weiner 1985, It focuses on internal versus external attribution, and how these affect emotions, judgment, and actions. Internal or disposition cause is located within the person. For example, they are lazy. External situational cause is outside the person. They had a rough childhood. So either blame on them or blame on the environment. Integration of the biopsychosocial model by biological correlation. People may attribute behavior to internal traits. He is aggressive, rather than recognizing neurobiological stress response from trauma, overactive SAM and HPA-axis. Misattributing biological rooted behavior like hypervigilance, emotional dysregulation can lead to blame instead of empathy. A biopsychosocial perspective explains that some behavior are adaptive responses to chronic stress, not inherent flaws. A traumatized child impulsive behavior might be judged as bad internal attribution rather than seen as stress-related biological attribution. For psychological correlation, defense mechanisms like projection, denial, or rationalization are shaped by trauma and used to protect the ego. Individuals using projection often attribute their own unacceptable feelings to others, a psychological attribution error. Attribution theory incites defense mechanism distort attribution to reduce discomfort, particularly in emotionally threatening situations. A child feeling vulnerable might bully others and rationalize they deserve it. Externalizing, I heard it one day, you deserve it. And I said, oh my. Okay. Externalizing blame to avoid inner guilt. That is the pain talk, the pain. The pain. The language of pain is very fascinating. If you understand it verbally, body language, tone of voice, facial expression, it's the language of pain. It's by itself as an expressive discipline. Social correlation in bullying, mobbing, or gaslighting. Social groups may collectively misattribute negative intent to victim to justify exclusion or abuse, scapegoating. Cultural biases or stereotyping fuel systemic attribution errors, reinforcing social injustice against vulnerable populations. Biopsychosocial model and attribution theory shows how social context and cultural lens influence how we assign blame, responsibility, and meaning to others' behavior. A child from a low-income background may be seen as unmotivated, internal attribution, ignoring the sociocultural barriers or social causes. For attribution error, fundamental attribution error, projection or denial, blaming others for one's own pain, self-serving bias, rationalization, avoiding responsibility for harm, hostile attribution bias, reaction formation, re-emptive aggression toward others. These patterns become ingrained across lifespan, especially when the nervous system is dysregulated, biological. Emotion insight is low, psychological. The environment reinforces blame and punishment, social. In early childhood, the attribution, egocentric reasoning, blaming others. By social context, defense, denial, social learned blame patterns. Middle childhood, better distinction between intent and outcome, is still vulnerable by externalizing blame. Adolescence, increased self-attribution, shame proneness. Trauma may lead to internalized blame. It is all my fault. Adulthood, integration or entrenchment of attribution style influences relationships. This is when it comes entrenchment, attribution or style. This is how they see the world. It will never change. It will be the same, the same. Influences relationships, mental health, and culture intelligence. Trauma-informed therapy, targeting biological regulation, emotional insights, reframe maladaptive internal attributions. Cognitive behavior therapy challenges distorted thoughts, teaches accurate attribution of cause and effect. Restorative justice in schools reduces scapegoating, encouraging external situational understanding. Culture competency training address systemic biases, reduce stereotyping based attribution. In biological trauma related behaviors, personality flows, for example, denial, regression, nervous system regulation, that is the from corrective lens, psychological emotional repression, weakness or threat, projection splitting, you corrected with mentalization and insights. Allow them to reflect. Once you have a reflected, this is neuromodulation by itself, a process. And give it time, don't hurry. So give it time. Social, victim behavior deserving of harm, rationalization, displacement. The corrective action is empathy, context awareness. If they didn't know how it looks like and how it could be and its impact, how they knew it. Modeling. So how can the behavior manifest, for example, if there is a dysfunction in place or dysregulation? So biologically, you're going to see fidgeting, emotional outbursts. For attribution error, they are going to blame that he has ADHD or he is just being bad. The corrective lens is likely trauma-related SAM and HPA-axis dysregulation. Psychological, you're going to notice blaming others, denying wrongdoing. For attribution error, he never takes responsibility. Corrective lens, immature defense mechanisms, projection, denial, formed to protect against shame. Social, frequent conflicts with peer, no close friends. So the attribution error, he is a bully or he doesn't care. Correction, experiences of neglect impair attachment and social learning. For example, the caregivers are making internal dispositional attribution. For example, he is the person is disrespectful, rather than in external situation or attributions that it's a reactive trauma. Hostile attribution bias is observed that assume others are out there, like perceived threat out there to get them, leading them to preemptively act out. Other behaviors observed, like hyperarousal, poor sleep, anxiety, attribution error, it is the stress of the job. Corrective approach, HPA-axis sensitization from chronic workplace trauma. Psychological overreacting to minor issues, emotional reactivity, attribution error, she is too sensitive. Corrective lens is use of projection and displacement as defense mechanisms. Social, avoids collaboration, distrust school leadership or whatever environment leadership, Attribution error, she is not a team player. Correctness for this, carryover of institutional betrayal trauma or institutional betrayal trauma. Common attribution errors that attributes defiance to malice, while others attribute her distress to incompetence. Both miss the trauma roots of the behavior. So what another targeting goals is reframe the behavior and rebuild the trust. Process counter transference and triggers. Sometimes others take role, it is not theirs, or allow no boundaries, so that can counterfeit whatever intervention taking place. The caregiver is triggered themselves, so they have to work on their self-regulation. Foster mutual understanding and repair doesn't happen. It's only when the body feels safe. Address burnout, isolation, and team breakdown. So attribution theory helps in reveal how defenses mechanisms and trauma response are misinterpreted. Identify where blame, obstruct understanding and growth. Reframe behavior as a product of context, not character. So look at the context, not the character. Biopsychosocial model address trauma biologically, psychologically, and socially. Tailor intervention based on the role of whole person and their environment. Guide multi-level healing across lifespan. So let us see some of the projections or some of the dispositions it can take place. For example, the aggressor accuses the target of being too sensitive or overreacting to justify their own hostile behavior. The aggressor denies their own aggressive impulses by attributing them to the target. That is projection. A bully might say, you are just trying to start a trouble, when in fact they are provoking a conflict. Dehumanization, the aggressor treats the target as less than human to rationalize cruelty. Objectivization, I said they look at the target as an object, not human. Objectivization, reduces empathy and moral restraints. For example, mobbing, individuals may label a target as incompetent, useless, repeatedly to isolate or diminish them. Victim blaming, the aggressor claims that the target deserves the mistreatment due to perceived flaws. This deflects the responsibility and deflect. So they look for the deflect their ego, and preserve the aggressor's self-image. A gaslighter may say, if you weren't too paranoid, none of this would happen. Or it is your fault, it is all, or it's all in your head, or you are imagining. No, it is not you. Dominance assertions, the aggressor position themselves as superior or entitled to control the target. This satisfies needs for power and control and dominance, often linked to narcissistic traits. For example, bully, the aggressor may assert, we run this place and you are not welcome here, or you don't belong here. One of the coaches mentioned that I was in training, I was accepted, and I was to be seen as equal, but one of the colleagues just cornered her and told her, you don't belong here, you don't fit here, no one wants you here. So she's coaching, so She's highly skilled. So her reaction to this is she doubled on her efforts, and she proved that she does deserve to be here. However, she faced another challenge, and absolutely was completely seen that she is not welcomed, and the aggression was obvious. So she asked for a session with her supervisor, and she explained this is a real threat for her career and her existence in the place. And they provided her with different pathways, and yeah, she learned from it, and she understood what environment how to identify exactly the situational awareness and what is the course of action needs to be taken, and understand the situation within its context. So that is passing to us. Challenges does exist, but how are we perceived, and is there support or lack of support that will determine the course of action, what you need to do next. But this the child doesn't have this capacity. They have to be trained, they have to be aware, they have to build these scenarios to have these neuromuscles and prevent and save lives. Well, unfortunately, we learn at old age. We're not learning after we have been like through the ringer. So we don't want children to be like that. We don't want the adolescents to be like that, and we don't wish this to anybody. We don't wish it. We learn it the hard way. The baby boomers, the Gen X, and the millennials. I hope the next generations will learn the lesson in a different way, in a positive, different way. So, for example, minimize the target experience. So the aggressor diminishes or trivializes the target's feelings or complaints. Minimization reduces the target credibility and maintain aggressor's control. And that is what we see it in jumping monkeys and mobbing, that the conflict is intentional and it serves a function. So the conflict won't disappear. It has to exist. So you are just being dramatic, or it wasn't that bad. The downplay of the situation, the downplay. And this is severely, like, it brings this self distortion or rationalization. Is it okay or not? So the confusion state of the mind. Gaslighting and reality distortion. So the aggressor denies or twists the facts to confuse the target and undermine their confidence. Gaslighting erodes the target's sense of reality and self-trust. So that never happened, or you are imagining things. It never exists. So bring this the perceptual understanding of the target that they are delusional, and that set the stage that, oh, they are unstable, they are unreliable, and so on, so on, so on, so, and the cascade builds on, so it diminishes the identity of that target, and that brings joy to the aggressor. Social exclusion and isolation. The aggressor leads others to shun or exclude the target, reinforcing power imbalances. So this collective exclusion strengthens the aggressor's social dominance. We don't hang out with people like you, or you are not invited. You are not invited. You are not accepted. Yeah, we don't want you here. So blaming the target for group problems, so the aggressor is scapegoating the target as responsible for group conflict or failures. Scapegoating unites aggressors and disperses anxiety or guilt, and that's what we call family alliance or family cohesion. Family cohesion between two parties, family alliance between the whole group and recruiting for everyone to be in the same page. So because of them, we lost the contract. And that is using humor or sarcasm to undermine. The aggressor uses jokes or sarcasm to belittle the target, to make fun of in front of the group. That is to eliminate power or any possibility. So the target publicly. So humor masks aggression and makes it especially acceptable, because people are laughing. Why are not laughing? So you are the problem. You are dramatic. You are negative or whatever. So you are being perceived as the aggressor would like you to be perceived. Oh, here comes the drama queen. Exploiting vulnerabilities. The aggressor identifies the targets and the target's insecurities or past traumas, and that is when you say oversharing. Oh, and I did it, and unfortunately I regret it till now. Oversharing, and this is like the culture naivety or the trust, the over trust. When you trust easily, when you are easily trust, harm can happen radically. So be aware of that. Don't blame anyone. Be self-aware. So the aggressor identified the target's insecurity and past trauma. That this increases the target's helplessness and the aggressor's control. They say they understand that they study you, so they understand the projection of any behavior and the outcomes of the novelty already established. So then they understand that this is gonna present that, and that is wish fulfillment. So bringing up a target history or mental health struggles to discredit them. Over threats or intimidation, the aggressor uses direct threats or silence or control the target. Threats reinforce power hierarchy and suppress resistance. If you tell anyone, you will regret it, or I will take your name out or something like that. So it is intimidating and brings fear. It's a fear induced, and it brings a psychological, not only a psychological, it's a physiological response, and is based on the ordinate and subordinate dynamic and the vulnerability of the target. Claiming moral or social superiority, the aggressor frames their actions as for the greater good or discipline. Let us punish or discipline them. That is discipline, but it's infusing a desire from the aggressor to have this satisfaction. This justification reduces cognitive dissonance and guilt. I am just trying to keep things professional around here. So here, some of the words we hear: you are too sensitive, calling the target useless, or you deserve it, we run this place, you are dramatic, that never happened, we don't hang out with people like you, because of you we failed, drama queen, bringing up mental health history or other history into the public for the group to be diminished. So you will regret it. I am just keeping things professional. So for example, as well, projection, blaming the target for the team failure. If it is your fault, we missed the deadline, for example, or you are always messing up. feels confused and defensive, may try to explain or justify, which the aggressor dismisses. Targets attempts to clarify are framed as excuses of reinforcing aggressor's dominance. Dehumanization, I stated, refers to the target with the derogatory nicknames or belittling comments. She is just a dumb newbie. We hear the word stupid, foolish. It's lots of negative connotations and labeling, and the culture mastered the labeling on people. So this is can lead to social withdrawal, may be perceived as lack of competence, fueling further aggression. Victim blaming, the target reduce self-esteem, lower assertiveness, and increasing vulnerability. Dominance assertion is compliance, reinforce aggressor control. Rebellion may provoke harsher retaliation. Minimizing experiencing, minimize erodes the target confidence in their perception of reality. For example, you are overreacting, it is just a joke. We are joking. Gaslighting, psychological erosion of self-trust deepens isolation. Social exclusion, this is exclusion undermines the target social support and professional opportunities. Scapegoating creates a toxic work environment impacting entire team. Using humor and sarcasm to undermine public humiliation, damage reputation and self-esteem. Exploiting vulnerabilities, emotional exploitation foster distrust and anxiety. Over threat and intimidation, threats maintain silence and fear, preventing resolution. Claiming moral or social superiority, this is justification blurs lines between legitimate criticism and bullying. Targets typical psychological defense, for example, withdrawal, refusing social interaction and conflict, leading to increased isolation and stress. Denial, refusing to acknowledge the bullying, leading to temporary relief, but risks worsening the situation. Rationalization, explaining way of aggressors' behavior. Outcome for that maintains maintains the self-esteem but delays seeking help. Projection, blaming others to deflect feelings, can complicate relationships and workplace dynamics. Sublimation, channeling frustration into positive work, healthy coping, though not always possible. So it depends on, I said, it depends on the duration, severity, context, trauma history, regulation of the central nervous system. All of that has to be taken in place, and to understand the behavior from the neurobiological or the pathophysiological response. For example, typical defense mechanisms in targets like children and adolescents: denial, refusing to admit to how much bullying hurts; fantasy, imagining escape or revenge scenarios; identification with aggression, mimicking bullying behaviors to fit in; regression, acting younger or more vulnerable to seek care; displacement, taking anger out on siblings or pets. For domestic abuse context, for example, projection or blame: you made me do this, you are the problem. So to infuse confusion and guilt, and develop on the target self-blame and compliance. Dehumanization and insult, degrading target's worth: you are worthless, low self-esteem, hopelessness. Entrapment in abusive cycle, the vicious cycle. Victim blaming: if you hadn't said that, I wouldn't men have hate you. So shame and silence, reluctance to seek help, dominance assertion, physical intimidation, controlling behavior, infusing fear, submission, or rebellion. So the outcome is cycle of violence. Minimizing experience, it is not that bad, you are exaggerating. Self-doubt, denial, under reporting continued abuse. Gaslighting, you are crazy, this never happened. Confusion and disassociation, emotional destabilization, social exclusion, isolating from friends and family, loneliness, dependence, increased vulnerability, scapegoating, blaming target for partner problems, anxiety, internalized guilt, erosion of self-worth, humor, sarcasm, mocking or ridiculing feelings, embarrassment, shame, emotional withdrawal, exploiting vulnerabilities, bringing up past trauma or insecurities, heightening anxiety, helplessness, emotional trauma. Overt threats, threatening the harm or custody loss, fear, silence, entrapment, moral social superiority, claiming to discipline or teach lessons, conflicted feelings, justification of abuse. So defense mechanisms in domestic abuse, so denial, minimizing the severity of abuse, dissociation, emotional detachment to survive trauma, idealization, clinging to memories of better times. This is the target reaction, repression, blocking out painful memories, compliance, submitting to avoid harm. So for the intervention, there is like we say it's from biopsychosocial and attributional framework. So a multi-tiered system of support, MTSS framework, is widely recommended for bullying prevention and intervention in schools, integrating individuals, peer, teacher, family, and policy level actions. Is universal prevention, anti-bully policies, school-wide programs, teacher training, recognize the red flags. Recognize the red flags. It's important to build a safety plan, strategies for avoiding high risk. This is building up the scenarios, the neuromuscle, the role play, and the integration of the family or the community in understanding the red flag, on identifying what does it mean with pulling, gaslighting, mopping, or whatever it is, scapegoating, and understand where I am, what is going on right now. So self-awareness of what's happening, I acknowledge it, validate it, and know internally how it impacts me internally. So how am I responding to that? So the common denominator is modulating your central nervous system and building this capacity to identify and to have a plan in place that how you are gonna act upon the information presented to you. There has to be, like, for example, risk assessment, identify imminent danger using validated tools like danger assessment scale, safety planning, customized plan, including escape routes, emergency contracts, and safe housing, crisis hotline, that is on 24/7 support for immediate help. First, we say when the body is in the crisis state, that's the severity of the trauma, that is the compromisation of self-harm and others. Self-harm and others. So it's a critical point of physiological mechanism. To reestablish safety, we have EMDR, the eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, CBT, dialectical behavior. Group therapy, support a group, validation, shared experiences, and empowerment. Psychoeducation information about the abuse dynamics, defense mechanisms, and healthy relationships. Legal advocacy, assistance with restraining orders or custody or divorce. You have to identify all of this, identify what type of social support they need. What type, this is heavily in human ecological model, systems theory, and complexity theory, because the person is not acting monolithic, solo. So I mentioned trauma-informed care, empowerment, multi-level approach, a multi-tier approach, collaboration, culture sensitivity. All of this needs a whole different shift in health culture and training, and having an informed individual be self-aware and informed community. Aggression and trauma responses arises from intricate interaction of biological, physiological, and social factors by psychosocial model. Addressing just one aspect like behavior without trauma history limits effectiveness. Sensitive barriers in brain development make early life experiences, positive or adverse, profoundly shape longer-term emotional regulation. Stress response for SAM and HPA-axis and social behaviors. Both aggressor and targets utilize psychological defenses mechanisms that can perpetuate or mask underlying trauma and conflict. Awareness of these can guide more empathetic and effective interventions. Aggressors' tactics blame, dehumanization, gaslighting, and targets response withdrawal, compliance, resistance, create cycles that can escalate or de-escalate bullying or abuse. Effective strategies address individual, relational, and systemic levels, family, school, workplace, legal, using a trauma-informed, culturally sensitive approach. Interventions must prioritize restoring safety, autonomy, and self-efficacy for targets while promoting accountability and behavior change for aggressors. Coordinated efforts between mental health providers, educators, legal system, families, and communities improve sustained recovery and prevention. Because trauma and aggression are dynamic, intervention require continual reassessment and adaptation to changing circumstances and developmental stages. Building trust, validating relationships before attempting confrontation or behavior change. Use psychoeducation to normalize trauma response or reduce stigma. Incorporate skill building for emotional regulation, communication, and assertiveness. Ensure safety planning is practical, personalized, and updated regularly. Recognize culture, values, and systemic barriers impacting intervention access and success. Advocate for policies that support the trauma-informed care and bullying abuse prevention. You have to have like some of the reflective questions. So self-reflection is a continuous process. You train, ask questions, validate, acknowledge, be aware, pay attention, and ask yourself, do I recognize signs of trauma or stress in the individual in front of me? Am I avoiding victim blaming language? Do I validate the individual experience and feelings? Am I aware of my own emotional reactions and biases? Have I created a safe, confidential environment? Am I culturally sensitive and respectful of diversity? Do I have clear boundaries to maintain professionalism and trust? Am I collaborating with other professionals or families as needed? Am I regularly reflecting on my intervention's effectiveness? Do I have a plan for self-care to avoid burnout? So check out safe spaces, emergency contacts, escape routes, essential items, signals, support network. How do you feel when others treat you that way? So that's part of the reflective. Has anyone ever felt left out, or what helped you? How can we how can we do together to make sure what can we do together to make sure everyone feels safe and respected? Why do you think someone might act like a bully? How can we respond differently? Who do you trust to talk to when things get tough? And understand the aggressor, making sure that they understand who is the closest circle toward you, and they do all their best to turn them against you. That is sense of isolation, that is sense of creating the control, dominance, and sense of power, and they are they are in control in what needs to take place. So understand this mechanism take place. So the only thing is your self-care, how you cope, or how you create this sense of safety that you can process these tough times. Do the I statement, like that is strong sense of self. I statement. But what would you like to be happen differently? You can set boundaries. Say stop, please. No, the word no or stop. So plan safe ways to seek help if needed. Because if it is aggravated on your SAM and HPA-axis and already impacting the quality of your day, that is a red flag. What are the immediate risks for this individual? For example, identify what trauma history might influence their behavior, what defense mechanisms might be operating, how can I empower this person's voice and choices, who else should be involved in their care, what culture factors do I need to consider, how will I evaluate the intervention effectiveness? So all this that we say, if we create this reflective journal with all questioning, because don't expect a person that highly exposed to the triangulation of this cluster personality disorders and the dysfunctional of the environment and their bias systems. Don't expect they are gonna operate from the same mechanism every single day. There is peak. When I said that, say understand your peak, understand uh, your personal flows, or the downfall of it, and then the stability, so that what brings it down and what leads you to the stability state. It's like the curve, but so how you flatten the curve, but the peak happens. So understand what are your triggers, understand what exactly unresolved within you. Everybody has something to work on. So but it is like the maturity is to be aware of it. Second, take responsibility of it. Third, understand how to work on it, and then take the action just to do the healing and allow the body to process it. Unless the body has a sense of safety, the body is still masking and projecting in adopting the self mechanisms. So there is still tensity, there is severity, there is a prolonged exposure to unwanted behavior, signaling, experiences, situations, everything. So you have to understand exactly where you need to start. As you see, the matrix of aggression is wide open for the world, and it's in everything and everywhere, even the silent aggression. Even if you have a dysregulated central nervous system and you are still in the process of healing, part of the passive aggressive as well, the silent treatment. It just like to be like this, they infuse negative behavior in you and they get into you and leave you check in the box. So you have to understand there is a wide open arena for manipulation, masking, differentiation in the timing. But it is calculated, it is constant, and it happens as a way of life, but it is not healthy life, and it is compromising the human in you. So how far you are carrying the respect and integrity of what God has created within you, and how you give this respect to God first, and then back to yourself to understand that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. And there is a whole different life that if you are in alignment with yourself, that you know thyself, how to know yourself. Culture does not mean everything goes right. Many things we take for granted, but we don't know the implication. I love to understand when somebody says some word or some phrases, I dig the history behind it and understand exactly the implications on the group and the power dynamics. What is the play of it? But I give it time and understand, oh, so this is just a word that uh, it is what it is culture norm or uh, agreeing with what the world is saying, but without understanding. So you have to pay attention that whatever we say, whatever we do, how it impacted you and others. So, with the personal responsibility, we understand that we are humans, yes. We make mistakes, but some mistakes are intentional and they are harmful to the self and others. So, how to identify that and how to not to protect, how to take the right actions. Um, Nothing is too late if you would like to be in alignment with what has God gifted you already. What has God gifted you already? He didn't ask you for anything but to understand this heritage and how um to use it wisely. So, oh my goodness, that is the part 10 of see how it's everywhere in multi levels, multi layers, but it is based on you what type of life you would like, what type of life you would like, what type of day, what type of moment you would like to infuse in your life. I wish you well, and I I close part 10. So let's see what's next, because this is a life journey just to unravel the matrix of aggression and its manifestation and its um, impact in our life across generations, from cross culture, from intergenerational perspective. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. And if you are here in the East Coast, so I wish you all the best, and I wish you well, and I hope that we make slight changes in um, what we perceive, how we digest it, how it is metabolized on the neurobiological or pathophysiological. I wish you well and peace.